In today's socially connected and fast-paced world, you will want to succeed and stand out from the competition. Your host, Jonathan Butler, is an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and author, and is known for shaking up the everyday within our highly competitive industry. Welcome to the Disruptive Restaurateur podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Disruptive Restaurateur. I'm John Butler, and with me today I've got Rob McMillan, who is the founder of Operalis. How are we doing, Rob?
Yeah, very good, John. Great to meet you.
And you, obviously only virtually today, so we are doing our social distancing. I'm recording this online, so
absolutely.
Right, so Rob, tell us a bit of your background. Tell us all about Operalis, and then we can chat away. So yeah,
No problem. Yeah, so Operalis was founded just this year as a result of I'd spent 5 years in the industry, in the technical industry around restaurants, and effectively running across multiple different types of services, online ordering, integrations for POS, delivery. And what I realized was that there were lots of suppliers in the market, providers in the market, or cloud providers, software providers that were providing these services directly to restaurants. But actually, if you're a restaurateur, especially if you're a single unit operator, you're probably not very tech savvy. Certainly not around the areas of understanding how the technology fits into your business operationally. So I thought, you know what? The world I came from many years ago was telecoms and IT, and you'd have a model where you'd have a reseller. You called it a reseller, and he'd go in there, or he or she would go in there, and you'd evaluate the operation of a particular business based on, how it operates, understanding, sort of the red markers, the challenges that different operations face, the different divisions in the business face. And then ultimately what you'd do is you'd create a document, which would be a high-level recommendation document, and you'd give that back to the customer, the client, and they would then evaluate and make a decision as to whether they want to move forward. Now, that could be one particular stream of technology, or it could be multiple streams, depending on the kind of the state of the business at that particular time. Now, in the restaurant industry, there are, as you'll see from my homepage, there's been an explosion of software applications, from online ordering, pay at table, beacon technology for facial recognition, delivery. Do you want to outsource your delivery? Do you want to manage your own delivery? Kiosks. There are so many technologies, it's almost like a minefield for restaurateurs. And what we try and do at Operalis is we try and make sense of that for people, to say, let's just do a bit of a health check on your business. It's not an extensive process. You're talking like 30 minutes just to say, look, let's talk about your business. How do you operate? And things like fundamental things like, for example, does your food travel well? So we know pizza travels well because it has a tomato base which remains hot. It's a good conductor of heat, so pizza travels particularly well. We know the same of Chinese and Indian food, high water content, therefore it retains the food. We also know that chips don't travel well, and we know that burgers don't travel well, especially if you've got the wrong type of packaging, because typically stuff sweats. So it's these sort of things that we take into account when we engage with our clients, to make sure that they understand operationally how successful they would be if they deploy certain technologies. And because, obviously online ordering and delivery, the byproduct of that is you're actually going to sell more food, but it's going to be delivered. And therefore, is there an impact or a compromise on the quality of your product? We don't want that. So in that case, we probably advise against it. But we would look at other things like, for example, you've got a big footprint restaurant and you're particularly busy at lunchtimes. Would you like your customers to order online or via a kiosk, so they can jump the queue? And therefore, obviously you benefit from the optimization of resources. Rather than running, with 8 staff, you run with 6 or 4, and just prepare the food rather than actually serving clients. So it's lots of different things to look at. But what we're looking at is an advisory service. We don't charge for our advice. We make a margin on the services that we provide through our suppliers. That's how it operates. Yeah.
That's the mate. Well, let's say obviously a great, great. I can understand completely, because I've been to some of these kind of restaurant shows and stuff where, let's just take EPOS as an example,
Mm.
you could have 10 or 15 suppliers at one show.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, you probably think that every single one does exactly the same thing. But I suppose
Mm.
there is differences to every single system, isn't there?
There are. I mean, if you take POS as an example, there are the variations are on-site POS. There are cloud-based POS. There are POS that's provided that doesn't give you a backup, an online backup. So, for example, if your Wi-Fi goes down, you can't any longer take orders. So that's a big issue. There's some that have an integrated chip and PIN. Others don't have any integration with payment devices. There are some that are charged on a capital basis. So if you've got a budget and you can fork out 15,000-20,000 pounds, we'll give you a bunch of POS with software. There's others that operate £49 a month on an iPad. So it really depends on the operation, the size of the operation, and also the integrations. Are you looking to integrate to labour management and to workforce management? Do you want to integrate your Deliveroo, Just Eat, and Uber Eats orders coming into your restaurant? Do you want to integrate them to the POS to make sure that you're not having to manually transpose information from a tablet to the POS terminal, which not only costs money from a resource perspective, but also is very open to a lot of human error. And of course, human error means wrongly cooked food, which means food in the bin. So POS is a bit of a minefield. And in the UK, there's something like 65 different POS providers. So when you're in the market for a new POS, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot, right? It's huge. And they're all knocking on your door trying to sell you a unit. So
Yeah.
again,
And
what we
they'll
try
all say theirs is better than the last one that you
of course,
mentioned. Oh, yeah, I looked to this. Oh,
yeah,
no, well, our system does this, whereas theirs doesn't do that. And so, yeah. And that's what I mean. So I totally, this is the thing. I think it's, I suppose it can get quite overwhelming for people when they start to look into this. And as you sort of mentioned, I think that, making the wrong decision at that point is probably quite, can be quite detrimental to the business in the longer term, because, if you're investing, into an EPOS system, at the start of your business, and in 6 to 12 months you realise actually that was the wrong system, you've either got to make the decision of, we stick with it, but knowing it's actually not really working and doing the job as efficiently and as it could be, or you bite the bullet and you reinvest into the next system,
yeah,
and hope that you make the right decision second time round.
yeah.
Which can be incredibly expensive. And bit of a side point this, but I was watching Dragon's Den last night, and there was a woman on there who had she designed a piece of clothing that attached into coats. It was for baby carrying, but she had wasted like 30 odd thousand pounds on tooling because she got it wrong the first time round.
Right, okay, right.
For their systems, they needed tooling. So again, it's that similar kind of process. If you get it wrong the first time round, it can become incredibly expensive.
Yeah, completely.
So it's a good idea to really, and at some point people might just think, it's an EPOS system.
Completely, John.
As I said, they all do the same, don't they? But they don't.
The thing is with EPOS is, again, harking back to my days in telecoms, the telephone system. If you bought a telephone system in the 90s, you're putting a box on the wall and hanging a load of telephones off it with cables, and that has a depreciation of between 10 and 15 years. So when you buy it, you're in for the long run, regardless of what features and functionality you thought it had. If it doesn't, it's too late. And it's the same with EPOS. EPOS holds the high ground in the sector. So everything hangs off the back of it. So what you find is that all the EPOS guys have lots of integrations to different applications. And if you make the wrong decision up front and you buy a unit that where the product team in that particular manufacturer are not developing more features, functionality, and integrations, you're stuck with it. You are stuck with it, and that's whether even if you buy a cloud-based product, which is low cost per month, you're typically going to be in a contract, and that contract's going to be extensive. And then what you've done is you've trained all your staff on how to use that particular software, come to the realization that actually this isn't fit for purpose. have to change it and retrain all your staff again, which
Yeah.
in a single unit isn't a big problem, but in a multi-unit, it's a big problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Getting it right is important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's but like I say, it's also, you could start off with a single unit, but you might be thinking, well, in 3 to 5 years, I want to have 2, 3, 4 restaurants. So
Yeah.
it could be that you need to have a system that's going to grow with, with the business. So then you can obviously, integrate all together. So that's interesting. And obviously you talk about things like where things are going. Obviously online ordering and kiosks. Kiosks is quite an interesting one. Maybe it's just because I've got two kids, but I only tend to see them in McDonald's.
Yeah.
You kind of think, is that only for the big companies? But I suppose more and more, even independent takeaways, benefit from kiosks.
Yeah, they can. I think for me, it's probably a subjective thing, but if I go into a particular QSR, let's talk QSR, fast casual, and I'm going to order, and I want to order before I get to the counter, so that I'm in a queue. KFC, Burger King, McDonald's, they're all doing it now, especially in service stations, for example. But what I don't want to do is have a bad experience. I don't want to go to a wall, find an iPad, and have to navigate my way through complex software. What I want is a very big unit when I can select food with my whole hand rather than my fingertip. And I want it to be a simplistic customer journey is the most important thing for me. And that to me is what kiosk is all about. If you want to give someone an iPad, give them an app and let them use it on the smartphone. Don't give them kiosks. So we're talking here about purpose-made, very large kiosks that have a hardware component as well as software. And I think it's more relevant where you have queues, where you're a takeaway. The likes of Five Guys, for example, would benefit from kiosks, I believe. They have online ordering, they have apps, but they have big queues at lunchtime, especially in the tourist areas. So rather than have a healthy 10 or 15 people in the queue, you end up with 30 people in the queue, and then you lose the back half because it's lunchtime and people don't have time to wait. So I think kiosk in that kind of environment where food is made to order is a great benefit.
It's quite important. You say it's got to fit the environment, hasn't it? Because it's they're pretty unsightly, really, aren't they? They're not the prettiest things.
No.
And like I said, I think I agree. I have been to some places where they do just have, like I say, the iPads on there. I think you find it a lot in London with the sort of smaller, kind of wrap type takeaway types that where the sort of maybe a Leon and things like that, sort of where it's very very quick. So but it's they've probably got quite a big menu on quite a small sort of screen, and I think, like you say, it's about that simplicity. Whereas and you understand when you go into McDonald's and you see it there and it's huge. It's right in your face. You can't miss them. In fact, you've got to dodge them to even now get to the counters, don't you? You probably can't even see the counter because of these huge screens. Because they probably benefit of actually, if we can get most people ordering on those, like you say, you've suddenly freed up, somebody stood at a till, or 2 people stood at a till, or 3 people stood at tills, and they can be obviously serving and making, doing the other bits, actually getting the money and getting it out, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. It's all about streamlining,
and that's why is there. Do you think that over time that these are going to be improved? That in terms of that, the looks will be better, or that they will fit more into places?
I think the challenge for the industry really is the pulling together of a turnkey, what we would class as a turnkey solution, which is effectively the software, the hardware components, the chip and pin, the printer, pulling everything together and putting it into a purpose-made unit is difficult. And you have to find companies out there that actually do this stuff, and then brand it to your own particular restaurant brand. That's the difficulty. And of course, different footprints demand different types of hardware. So in the case of McDonald's, for example, you've got very, very large screens of 1 meter high, 0.5 meter wide. They just won't work in a small unit in central London. No. So you have to scale appropriately. And what we have as Operalis is we have our hooks into a number of different providers that provide kiosk technology as a turnkey solution. Because the last thing you want to be doing is going to an online ordering provider and saying, I want kiosk. These guys are all about getting fast footprint, and they just won't entertain the pulling together of technologies into a single cohesive unit. But there are companies out there that will do that. So again, we would help the particular brand to hook into these guys and create a specific solution for their brand.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite. In terms of then the online ordering, obviously that's then different to the kiosk system. So where do you see that kind of where have you kind of seen the advances and the improvements in online ordering over the last sort of couple of years?
It's interesting. Online ordering is a bit of, again, an interesting area for restaurants. There's obviously the elephants in the room, and these are the Deliveroos, the Just Eats, the Uber Eats, the food aggregators. And I think when these guys first came around 5-6 years ago, actually longer in the case of Just Eat, I think restaurants just saw it as a kind of enormous bluebird. Give me a printer, turn it on, orders will come. I don't think what they realised over time is that the control that these guys would have over their businesses. I mean, firstly, just as a concept, an aggregator putting a tablet or printer into a restaurant to say, just accept the orders, you become a kitchen and a slave to that aggregator. That's the first thing. So you're literally a kitchen. And if that's how you want to operate your business, that's absolutely fine. And that's works very well for a lot of brands, no problem. Other brands, especially ones that actually invest in their profile, say, well, hold on a minute, how do I drive loyalty to my clients? And the answer is you can't, because the data is owned by the aggregators. So what you end up with is a business that's successful, but gives up 25% as a minimum to the likes of Deliveroo. Yeah, it can be. Well, it can be 30% if you're non-exclusive, but up to 30% of your revenue. Now, this isn't even your margin. This is your revenue for becoming a kitchen to Deliveroo. I mean, that's effectively what you're becoming. You don't have any control. They're not your customers. They're Deliveroo's customers. They drive the demand. And so if you wanted to drive loyalty schemes, if you want to put in, if you want to entice them into point systems, if you want to understand the profile of your customer to make sure that you're putting forward offers that are aimed at particular demographics or genders, you can't do any of that because you don't know who they are. All you get is a name and a phone number and the order. But again, legally, if you look at the contract, they're not your customers anymore. Now, the question is, were they once your customers that you could drive loyalty and have now become Deliveroo's customers or Just Eat's customers? That's the answer. So what online ordering does for you, providing your own online ordering on your own website, gives you control back. So effectively means that if a consumer is on Deliveroo, then what they'll probably do is go, what do I fancy tonight? And they'll pick a particular food concept that is Chinese, Indian, pizza, whatever they fancy.
Yep.
They won't necessarily be loyal to that particular brand. They might look at all the Chinese restaurants in their area and go, do you know what? We've all used this one in the past. We'll use this one again. That's fine. But actually, will they go, I want a specific shop on the high street that we've used for years and years and years. Let's see if it's on Deliveroo. Now, if it's not on Deliveroo, the chances are they'll go to their website. And if they go to the website, they'll find there's an online ordering facility. They can register a credit card and they can place an order. The order gets delivered in the same way. And probably orders that are placed directly on a website cost the store less. And therefore, they're more likely to prioritize you because they want to keep you on their website rather than going back to one of the aggregators. So your own online ordering has a lot of power. If you can move your consumers, past and present and future clients, away from the aggregators and onto your own online ordering, there's a massive financial benefit and there's a massive loyalty benefit in terms of data retention. The downside is if you have no intentions of, if you're doing delivery and you have no intentions of ever running your own riders, then you have no choice. You have to deliver it.
I suppose that this becomes the thing, though, isn't it? So I suppose it's almost. I think with Deliveroo and you Just Eats and your Uber Eats and stuff, I think what a lot of businesses have done is they sort of, well, because a lot of our competition are doing it, we just need to do it as well. So they kind of just throw themselves on there, but don't really kind of put the effort and the emphasis on that. It's just kind of like, yeah, if we get some orders in, then fine. If we don't, then it's not a big loss. But actually, you're kind of saying if you're going to go down your own online ordering route, it becomes another aspect of your business. So it has to be treated with the same respect as actually if we've got customers coming into the restaurant and serving them in the restaurant, we need to be, spending time and effort on ensuring that our online ordering is as good a customer experience as if you come into the restaurant. And like I say, then you can almost create a much stronger comparison with the two. And I personally, I think that there's a much better case, and we were having a conversation before we started recording, that I'm a bit against the Deliveroos, etc., because I think they take away the whole point and ethos of you setting up a restaurant and having customers coming in and well trained staff and everything else. It's almost as you said, you're handing control over to somebody who, let's be honest, is coming in on a bike. Then they're coming in, walking in through the restaurant with Deliveroo or whatever branding on them, and all they're bothered about is getting your food out as quick as they can, get the next one, because they're on very, very low pay and probably being paid per delivery rather than kind of any other sort of system. Yeah. And I think for me, if you can create more of a branding cohesiveness of well, our delivery is like I say, we do it our own in-house and everything else, then like I say, there should be much more financial benefits and that ability for you to deliver more of your brand values directly to the customer, even if they're eating at home, than if they're eating than as they would get when they're eating in your restaurant. Yeah. Because my question is, it would be, a lot of people are probably thinking, well, my own online ordering, that's going to be expensive. Is it relatively expensive to do these days?
No. Well, it depends how you view it, I suppose. Nothing's free. Everything has a cost. Just going back to the delivery thing, John, before we move on to that, there is another very, very good option of running delivery. Yeah. So in my previous previous role, I came to the realization very quickly that if you're providing online ordering, you need to have delivery with it. One goes with the other, because actually click and collect has very limited appeal. People typically don't want to place an order for food they're going to collect, especially from a takeaway. They're prepared to wait 10 minutes for the food to be there. So only in very extreme circumstances, like using Five Guys as a good example, where you might want to avoid that 20, 30 person queue, you might want to place an order in advance and go straight to the collection point. But that's kind of rare. For us, the best option, if you want to circumnavigate the cost of running with a Deliveroo, for example, is to run your own online ordering, but then have an integration. And when I say integration, I mean a fully automated integration into a third-party delivery company. Now, again, there are several out there. There are companies like Stuart, for example, French company, who have riders in pretty much every major conurbation in the UK. And the way you can operate is you have your consumers coming into your online ordering via your website or through your own mobile app. And then when the order is placed, exactly the same way as Deliveroo or Uber Eats operate, exactly the same way, you place the order goes through to the store, either on a tablet or it goes directly into the POS via the integration. And then the order simultaneously in parallel gets sent out to the delivery company. Now, the delivery company, because they're directly contracted to the restaurant, even though they're an outsource, there are service level agreements in place, and there is an element of control that the restaurant has over the outsourcer, whereas you don't with Deliveroo. Because remember, you're just a kitchen for Deliveroo, and the consumer is their customer, not yours. So what we do is we remove all the control away from the likes of the third-party operators, the food aggregators. We give it back to you, and you have the ability to deliver to your customer without having to employ riders, which I think is the thing that majority of restaurant brands want to avoid. They don't want the responsibility of, I've got no orders, but I'm still paying riders. So this is another really, really great way. And we've even used taxi companies in the past. So if you're a restaurant in the middle of a town, well, you live in Gloucester, right? I mean, you live in that sort of area. So imagine you have a restaurant in Evesham. You can pretty much guarantee that Uber Eats and Deliveroo don't operate in Evesham. They might do. I'd be surprised. But you might have an Indian restaurant that wants to deliver, or a Chinese, or any form of takeaway that wants to deliver food. We can put outsourced riders into that town as long as there's enough volume to satisfy one or two riders on busy periods. So again, it's a good option. It's a great option for restaurants wanting to deliver but not wanting the cost of operating through the aggregators.
Yeah.
Onto online order. Online ordering. Is it expensive? It depends. There are lots of providers out there, and they all have a different model. So some of them will charge a commission. Typical commission somewhere between 5 and 8%, as opposed to 30% you're paying delivery. But remember, you're responsible for getting food to the client, with an upfront cost of somewhere between £200 and £300, something like that, to set up the site in the first place. But that will include a tablet or a printer. Other providers will provide for you at somewhere between £49 and £180 a month per store, depending on the level of functionality you want. So if you want an integration into your POS, for example, it's going to be more expensive. If you're happy to operate out off a tablet, it's going to be cheaper, but then you've got the cost of resource. So there are options. And again, hopefully what Operalis can do for you is make sense of those options. We have relationships with about 8 different online ordering providers. They typically provide their services into different sectors. So depending on the sector you operate in, will depend on, and also the model, the commercial model you want to adopt. Then we would put you in touch with the right supplier for the right service. But I don't, if you're confident you can get your own consumers onto your website and through your online ordering platform, I don't consider it to be expensive. I think it's an inexpense. There are companies, Chinese restaurants and Japanese restaurants in London, doing around £120,000 transactions on a weekend, in one weekend, through their own online ordering that costs them £275 a month. So, it can be very lucrative. You've got to market, you've got to leaflet your area, you've got to be very proactive in getting people onto your platform. But and what those guys do is they use Deliveroo between Monday and Thursday, and then Friday to Sunday they use their own online ordering. Another option.
Yeah, and I suppose that is that, like you say, that's it. It's having that almost that hybrid, in between sort of model, and like I say, knowing your business and knowing, like I say, well, we know we're going to be quiet on a, say Monday to Wednesday or whatever it might be. Therefore, we just utilize them for that period. But like I say, when you're then much busier, you can focus on it. And it's as I said before, it becomes that taking it more seriously. So if you are going to invest into your own online ordering, then take it seriously and drive some, like I say, you've got to start to drive traffic into that system, don't you? So it's then, you do, whether it be utilizing Facebook and things like that, and
absolutely
Instagram and all these sort of things of sort of how do we drive people into our own, sort of system, rather than them thinking, oh well, we'll just go on Deliveroo or Just Eats, whatever, and find somewhere that does what you do. So I certainly see, but I think it is that more taking it more seriously rather than it just being a oh well, we have to do it because everybody else is sort of doing it type model.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So we kind of covered most stuff there. Obviously, the next thing I suppose is, we'll talk a bit about where things are going in a minute. But last thing I was going to sort of ask you about is obviously sort of payment sort of systems. Do you obviously you look at payment systems as well? There's obviously been a change in the way that we're paying for stuff. Do you think that a restaurant's keeping up with that, or is there stuff that restaurants need to be doing to improve how they actually are taking money?
Well, I mean, John, payments again. If you thought there was lots of POS, there's lots of payments. I mean, so many providers out there. You've now got Google Pay and Apple Pay that have come into the market in the last year or so. So contactless is becoming very prevalent. I see lots of restaurants now with, or particularly takeaways, with contactless only, so no cash at all. I'm seeing that a lot. So I think in those circumstances, having an integrated chip and pin to your POS is really important. For example, there are what I class as traditional providers out there: the WorldPays, the Barclaycards, the Mastercards, and then you've got the more kind of innovative payment providers like Payment Sense, for example, iZettle, who are focusing very much more on the small end of the market but contactless. And again, it's horses for courses, because apart from the operational side of it and how those payment devices and services fit into your business, a lot of it can be down to purely commodity. What are these costing? They all have a different kind of cost structure. Some of them will charge you a particular percentage with a transaction fee attached. And if you're looking just to reduce your payments as low as possible, then you need to shop around. And again, the advice is to use someone like Operalis to do that work for you, and you focus on your own business. But there are so many options, and
to put cash into banks don't want cash, do they? So
No.
I remember, taking cash up to the bank or whatever, it becomes really expensive. So I suppose that we've got to, because I know there is all this always, I suppose, in people's minds. If you're taking a £20 note over the bar or over the counter, that is £20, but it isn't, because then you've got to think, well, how much is it costing me to put it into the bank? But they don't really think about that at that point. Whereas if you take £20 off a card and you're paying, whatever it might be, 1%, 2% of the transaction, then suddenly there's is it that mindset of people, or are people saying, what? Because I'll be honest, I'm very rarely, nowadays, I'm very much a, contactless or card person. I don't carry cash a great deal at all.
Yeah.
And it suddenly becomes this, where are the barriers, but actually where are we going? Personally, I think we are going, like as you said already, there are places that are, cashless.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and I think that is probably where we're going to end up, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think people's lives are on their smartphones now, and I don't think that the payment companies are stupid. I think they're all heading that way. But I would say also, the restaurant sector is, the oldest sector in the world, and I can't quote the exact numbers, but there are circa 65,000 hospitality entities in the UK. There's about 27,000 restaurants that you would class as restaurants, stroke QSRs, stroke quick service. But a very, very large proportion of those still use a cash draw and don't have any form of technology to take payment at all. So being mindful of that. But I think the world's changing and everything's going to be consumer-led. So if you want to maintain consumers coming into your business, people are going to have cash less and less and will rely on payment devices of some sort. You see the rise of a lot of these what are classed as SMB operators, the small business operators who are engaging with single site operator brands, and it's just from a consumer perspective, I just want to click a card, click a phone, pay for my goods. From a restaurant's perspective, having your transactions integrated into your till to make sure that all the cash is consolidated to the back end of your operation is really helpful to make things clean, and to automate as much as you possibly can, take away manual process. And online, what you also find is with online ordering, for example, the providers in that space are very different to the providers with the in-store space. So the likes of Stripe, for example, Stripe and Braintree, which is owned by PayPal, and PayPal themselves as well, they're very prevalent online. So what you end up with as a merchant is you end up with a provider of in-store payment and a provider of online payment. They're very different because they operate in different spheres. There are some crossover. So I think Barclaycard and WorldPay, for example, do both online and in-store. But I would say almost de facto online payment providers nowadays are Stripe and Braintree, because they're built for the developer world for those online platforms. They fit very nicely into the platforms and give developers less hassle. So ultimately, I think those guys are. But from a merchant's point of view, it won't make any difference. We get a merchant ID, we plug it in, we turn it on, and payments appear in their bank within 24 hours. It's very straightforward. It's very straightforward. So it just means there's two providers to manage. But again,
not taking cash. That's the thing. Obviously, you limit then. Obviously, theft. If you're not taking everything else, there's a lot of things that you can obviously ensure that doesn't happen. What's interesting, we've gone nearly 36 minutes without mentioning this. Obviously, with the current situation that we're in, and obviously when you go into some places now to shop and they won't take cash. I think, do you think the current situation is actually going to start to make people trust, things like contactless payments? And are people going to be more fearful now of going back to cash because of, of the whole, COVID-19? Is that going to be now? I think should restaurant operators be thinking now for when they reopen? Actually, is the mindset of the consumer? Because I think there's certainly going to be a lot of things we'll touch on those in a minute. But is that one thing? Do you think that that's got to be taken into consideration?
I think the world's definitely changing, isn't it? I mean, it's hard to judge because I don't think in our lifetimes, certainly me and you, John, we've never been in this situation, so we can surmise, we can guess at what we think is going to happen. But I think even now, I think without coronavirus, I think people were already erring towards contactless anyway. I think, if I stand in a queue at a restaurant and people at a takeaway, people ordering food, they're typically tapping away. I've seen very, very few, especially in London, very few with cash, but that is London. Yeah. I think that the behaviour of consumers will definitely go towards, I think it's going to take a long time, not just in restaurants, but in retail generally, for consumers to get the confidence that a particular item that they're holding, a bag that they're holding, a piece of cash that they're holding is free of infection. I just think that it's a whole new world, isn't it? I just don't know. I don't know where it's going to go, but certainly on the restaurant side, you're dealing with hygiene, and hygiene and coronavirus is intrinsically linked. So I don't know what the behaviour is going to be. I don't know whether restaurants are going to open and suddenly no one's going to appear. Everyone's going to be ordering delivery. I just don't know. I honestly can't predict that. No. It's not an area of expertise for any of us because none of us have experienced it. Well, no, right?
I suppose it's just trying to understand. Personally, I think that people will, they'll want to get out after being cooped up for so long, and not being able to. And I think there will be that opportunity. I think there's going to be quite a mix, like I say, because some people are like, well, do you know what? Why don't we just have friends around and we order something in?
Yeah.
But then others will want to get out and be again in that, that social, space. And I think, what would you sort of give as some advice? We sort of start to sort of wrap up now, sort of what would you kind of give operators and people, restaurant owners advice now that they can be doing in this kind of, let's call it downtime, to maybe get their house a bit in order, ready for when, for when they do reopen, in terms of, if they've got, they might have EPOS systems in already, or I'd expect most of them to have systems in already. Some might be looking. What advice would you give that they can do to kind of, so when it does get, that they're a bit more efficient?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say, John, is that I think even during this period, talking to a lot of my suppliers, especially around the online ordering area, they're seeing record numbers of restaurants, and not just restaurants, but hotels as well, that want to maintain operational capability and some form of revenue, and also support workers like the NHS, for example. They're looking for online ordering, and I think in one particular supplier that I have, in a week had 140 new restaurants sign up, which is unprecedented. So people already are looking for ways to enable consumers to engage with them. I know that high-end restaurants, for example, that are wanting to have their food delivered, to keep kitchens open, are turning to online ordering. So I'd consider that. I think, when you look at your internal processes, I think now is a good time to do it because life is hectic. When you're open, you're open typically from lunchtime till late at night, depending on your type of concept. But so you only have a few hours in the very early morning to try and really take a step back and look at how your business operates. Is it effective? Are you making the margins that you think you should be making? Are you actually controlling your consumers, your customers? Is 50% of your business delivery controlled by a third party? And what does the future look like? Are you a lifestyle business that operates one unit and happy to live that way? Do you have ambitions to expand? If you do, as soon as you move to a second unit, there are lots of considerations around technology. And that's what I would be doing. I'd be looking at, where's the future of this business? Where am I going? And how do I engage? And I think, just going back to the Operalis model, just not even Operalis, but the model itself, it's geared towards helping restaurateurs to make decisions and it's free advice. We don't charge for our service because we make our money obviously on the supply of the goods. And sometimes there is no supply of services because following a health check, everything's fine. And understanding the suppliers in the market, there isn't really an improvement to be made anywhere. So it really is, for us, it's a bit of a numbers game. We are here to help and make money at the same time. And I think for restaurateurs, it's a case of, what's my business doing? Can I optimize? Can I make it more efficient? Can I make more margin? Somebody give me some advice. And I think that's where we can step in and really support the sector. But yeah, there's no more to say than that, really, John. It's just a case of, now's a good time, especially if you're closed, to really take stock and analyze where you are as a business.
See, you kind of answered what my next question was going to be. In that answer would always be, kind of obviously we call it the disruptive restaurateur. What is disrupting the market at the moment? And I think, like you say, it is this online ordering. It is the delivery model because of the situation we're in. So getting in touch with you, obviously they can go to your website, operalis.co.uk, and obviously all your details, contact details and everything are on there.
Absolutely.
Rob, it's been brilliant. I think you've given us loads of value, and thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, John. Really appreciate your time.
No, not a problem at all. Appreciate yours. Okay, thank you.
Take care for now.
And you.